The rules have never been the same twice. The punishment has ranged from nothing to everything, and the line between the two has almost always been drawn by whoever was in power at the time. Rome. In Rome, who you slept with was not the question anyone asked. The only thing that mattered was whether you were the one in control. A free citizen could sleep with men, women, slaves, or prisoners, and walk into the Senate the next morning without a single raised eyebrow, as long as he was the dominant one. The moment that flipped, everything else flipped with it. In 80 BC, Julius Caesar traveled to the court of King Nicomedes of Bithynia on a military errand. He stayed longer than the mission required, long enough for people to start talking. When he returned to Rome, his enemies had already settled on a name for him: the Queen of Bithynia. He spent the rest of his life denying it. He denied it in public speeches. He denied it under oath in the Senate. It did not matter. Years later, when his own soldiers marched through Rome celebrating his military victories, they sang it in the streets. Caesar conquered Gaul. Nicomedes conquered Caesar. This was Rome. You did not need to be caught. You only needed to be suspected of the wrong role. One rumor, and even the most powerful man in the world spent decades looking over his shoulder. Han China. For most of Han Dynasty China, love between men was not hidden, not whispered about, and not punished. It simply existed, the way eating or sleeping existed, as a normal part of court life that nobody felt the need to explain. Emperor Ai woke one morning to find his male companion still asleep across his robe. He needed to leave. Instead of pulling the robe free and waking him, he took a blade and cut the sleeve off at the shoulder. That gesture was recorded by court historians. It spread through the empire. For the next 2,000 years, the Chinese phrase for love between men was simply the cut sleeve. Emperors kept male companions openly. Their names appear in official court records, listed alongside titles and dates, the way any other relationship would be documented. Nobody lowered their voice. Then the Qing dynasty came to power in 1644 and passed the first law in Chinese history making it a crime. 1 month in prison, 100 strikes with a cane. It was the softest punishment in the entire Qing legal code, as if they already knew what they were starting. Ancient Greece. In Athens, it was not just accepted, it was structured. Older men were expected to take younger male companions under their guidance. They taught them philosophy, military strategy, and how to conduct themselves in public life. The relationship was considered part of a young man's education. It had a name, a set of rules, and a place in civic life. The philosopher Socrates had a reputation for being deeply attached to beautiful young men. His student Plato wrote about it openly. Alcibiades, one of the most powerful Athenian generals of the 5th century BC, gave a speech at a dinner party recorded by Plato, in which he described trying to seduce Socrates and being turned away. He told the story as a complaint, not a scandal. But the rules were specific. The younger man was not supposed to appear too eager. The relationship was supposed to end when he reached adulthood. Break either of those rules, and the approval disappeared immediately. One Athenian law allowed a man to kill another on the spot for seducing a free-born boy outside the accepted framework. The line between celebrated and criminal was exactly one social rule wide. Feudal Japan. In the samurai world of feudal Japan, relationships between adult warriors and their young male apprentices were not only tolerated, they were written about in poetry, debated by monks, and considered by many to be purer than relationships with women because they could not be motivated by the desire for children or money. The daimyo Oda Nobunaga, one of the most powerful warlords of 16th century Japan, had a well-documented relationship with a young page named Mori Ranmaru. Ranmaru served him for years, stayed close to him in battle, and was with him on the night in 1582 when Nobunaga was ambushed at the Honnoji Temple by a rival general. When the building was set on fire and escape became impossible, Ranmaru did not run. He died there. Contemporary accounts described their bond without embarrassment. It was recorded in the same tone used to describe any act of samurai loyalty. The relationship itself was not the remarkable part. The devotion was. That same culture, 2 centuries later, began producing conduct guides that discouraged such relationships as a distraction from duty. The acceptance did not end with a law. It simply went quiet, 1 generation at a time. The Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire at its height in the 15th and 16th centuries ran on a class of administrators and soldiers called the Devshirme, young Christian boys taken from their families, converted to Islam, and raised in the imperial palace to serve the Sultan. It was a system built on total control, and it produced some of the closest bonds in Ottoman history, many of them romantic. Sultan Mehmed II, the man who conquered Constantinople in 1453 and ended the Byzantine Empire, kept a young companion named Radu close to him for years. Radu was the younger brother of Vlad the Impaler. The relationship was noted by Venetian ambassadors, Ottoman chroniclers, and Byzantine historians, none of whom treated it as a secret. Official Ottoman law under Islamic jurisprudence prohibited same-sex acts. The punishment, in theory, was severe. In practice, inside the palace walls, the law operated differently for men with power. What was criminal in the street was ordinary in the court. The empire ran on that contradiction for 400 years. Colonial India. Before British rule, the Indian subcontinent had a documented tradition of a third gender called the Hijra. They appear in the Kama Sutra, in the Hindu epic the Ramayana, and in Mughal court records. They performed at royal births and weddings, received payment, held recognized social roles, and moved through society without legal restriction. In 1871, the British colonial government passed the Criminal Tribes Act, which listed Hijra communities as a criminal class by birth. Being Hijra was itself the crime. No act required, no evidence needed. Simply existing in that identity was enough for arrest. Section 377 of the British Penal Code, introduced in 1861, made same-sex relations a crime punishable by 10 years in prison. India gained independence in 1947 and kept the law intact. It remained on the books, unchanged, for another 71 years. The Supreme Court of India struck it down in 2018. The British Empire is gone. The law it wrote outlasted it by more than 7 decades. Nazi Germany. In 1871, unified Germany criminalized same-sex relations between men under paragraph 175. The law existed for decades without aggressive enforcement. That changed in 1933, the year the Nazi Party came to power. Between 1933 and 1945, an estimated 100,000 men were arrested under paragraph 175. Around 50,000 were convicted. Between 5,000 and 15,000 were sent to concentration camps, where they were forced to wear a pink triangle on their uniforms to mark their category. Inside the camps, they sat at the bottom of the prisoner hierarchy. The pink triangle was chosen as a marker of shame. After the war, gay survivors of the camps were not included in the official recognition of Nazi victims. In West Germany, paragraph 175 remained law until 1969. Some men released from concentration camps were immediately rearrested under the same law and sent to regular prisons. Decades later, the gay rights movement reclaimed the pink triangle. It is now one of the most recognized symbols of LGBTQ identity in the world. The Nazis chose it to mark people for elimination. It survived them. The present. In 2003, The United States Supreme Court struck down laws criminalizing same-sex relations in a case called Lawrence v. Texas. The ruling came 34 years after the Stonewall riots, the 1969 uprising in New York City where gay men and transgender women fought back against a police raid on a bar, sparking the modern gay rights movement. Today, same-sex relations are legal in roughly 130 countries. They are criminal in 64. In at least 12, the maximum penalty is death. Most of those 64 countries are not enforcing traditions that go back thousands of years. The majority of their laws trace directly to British colonial codes introduced in the 19th century or to 20th century religious legal reforms. The ancient world, as it turns out, was often more complicated than the modern one. What gets called timeless morality is, in most cases, less than 200 years old. That is the part nobody puts on the history exam.